I work with leadership in the zone, district, and clubs to promote the foundation, to attract new donors, and to engage current donors. Okay, you're able to see my screen, right? Perfect. Well, I want to start before I get into anything with just a question for everyone, and that's, what do you think a club or your district could do with an additional $10,000 in DDF funds? And I ask you to think about this a little bit as I go through these slides, and feel free if you'd like to drop an idea in the chat, and let's see ways we can build up that extra $10,000. You're familiar with the three primary funds that our participants can give in to support our Rotary Foundation. They include the annual fund, which is the primary source of funding for our foundation grants and activities. Our share program and areas of focus fall under this fund. The Polio Plus Fund is dedicated to global polio eradication and is our organization's #1 initiative. And the Endowment Fund supports our foundation in perpetuity. My team primarily works with the annual fund, but we do dip our fingers a little bit into these other areas as well. So I want to take a brief look at how District 5010 did in fiscal year 21. As the slide shows, total giving was down just a little bit, about 9.4% over the previous year. However, that's what we consider to be a plateau if it's within 10 plus or minus. The annual fund per capita was amazing at 160.74, and every Rotarian every year percentage was 48.4%. So you may say, what does this mean for our district? Well, in a pandemic year where there was so much uncertainty and no one knew what the next day would bring, your district decided to take action and do work, and you rallied together and did an amazing job in fundraising. And I want to say congratulations and thank you so much for that job well done. Your district EREY percentage compared to the other districts in your zone 28 was above the zone average last year. Even so, every Rotarian every year, which is EREY, is an area of opportunity that we should continue to focus on and continue to grow and continue to raise funds through it for our share program, and in turn do more good in the world. So that slide that I had before asking what could we do with $10,000 more, this is one way we could work towards raising that additional $10,000 is by increasing the number of every Rotarian every year donors we have in the district. So now here's a snapshot of your giving through October, and the district is off to an extremely great start. As you can see, the annual fund's over $55,000 already. That's a year-to-date change of 45.3%. Per capita is $38.32, and your EREY is at 24.8%, which is already more than halfway where you were last year by the end of the year. So kudos to everyone for all the work that you do. I bring up these 4 categories on this slide and the previous because they're markers for success in your district. Continuing to focus on these 4 categories collectively while fundraising and sharing stories about annual fund share, they'll contribute to success of your club's annual fund giving and your club goals. So I mentioned every Rotarian every year percentage, and I'm sure everyone on this call is familiar with our initiative for the annual fund called Every Rotarian Every Year. The goal is to encourage support of the annual fund and to increase Rotarian engagement with the foundation. The idea is that if every Rotarian gave at least $25 to the annual fund yearly, what the foundation could accomplish would multiply. As the slide shows, in fiscal year 21, our Rotarians accomplished a lot. So imagine all the good that we can do in your district if we could increase that E-rate percentage from 48.4% to 75, 80, or even 85% of your donors giving at least $25 to the annual fund. One thing I encourage is celebrating your E-Ray donors in your club by distributing E-Ray badge stickers to those who qualify. They're available through our licensed vendor, Russell Hampton, at bestclubsupplies.com, and they're free of charge. They're an easy way to get the E-Ray conversation going and to spur a culture of giving in a club. And of course, without sustained support of the annual fund, the programs of the Rotary Foundation just wouldn't be able to happen. But with contributions of $100 or more from every member every year, we can nearly double our efforts to help people in need. Someone who contributes $100 or more to the annual fund every year is considered a Rotary Foundation sustaining member. And they can easily do this using Rotary Direct, our recurring giving tool, for just $10 a month. And I'll talk more about Rotary Direct in just a bit. And of course, our donors' philanthropic goals do vary. And we, as you know, have recognition at all levels to recognize those donors. Two of the most well-known recognition pieces are the Paul Harris Fellow and Paul Harris Society. So I'd like to take a moment and just say thank you so much to all of you on this call that are Paul Harris Fellows, Paul Harris Society members, for giving to our Rotary Foundation and for any other recognition that you've achieved. The Paul Harris Fellow is achieved through a combination of points given to a donor and dollars that they've contributed. Contributions that count are Annual Fund, Polio Plus, approved global grants, and the Disaster Response Fund. However, contributions to the Endowment Fund do not count towards this recognition. Once a participant reaches a $1,000 level through a combination of points and dollars, recognition for Paul Harris Fellow is automatically sent to the club president. It's also sent once they achieve a new level. The Paul Harris Society, also known as PHS, is a little bit different. This is a commitment to give annually $1,000 to Annual Fund, Polio Plus, or Disaster Response, and approved global grants. Last year, the generosity of our Paul Harris Society members contributed to just under 18% of our annual fund gifts. That's a whopping $24.8 million in contributions towards future district and global grant projects. And here I included just a snapshot of the Paul Harris Society in your district. District 58 has, or District 5010 has 58 donors enrolled in the Paul Harris Society. And that's, again, the commitment to donate $1,000 or more per year. However, 64.29% are meeting that commitment annually. But the good news is that is above the worldwide average of 54.97. As a district, you have an opportunity here to grow in this area by educating donors on the importance of the Paul Harris Society and encouraging those that are making those $1,000 contributions to enroll, and those that may not be and are enrolled to make sure that they meet that commitment. One easy way for our donors to achieve Paul Harris Society is through Rotary Direct, again, our recurring giving program. And that's a commitment of $85 per month through that program. These are just two individual recognitions I'm mentioning. And of course, Elizabeth will talk more about major donor and bequests later on in the program. And we also have club awards, foundation banners that go to the clubs on a yearly basis for achieving outstanding giving. The 100% foundation giving banner recognizes those club members with an average of, those clubs who average $100 to any fund, and each member gives at least $25. The Every Rotarian Every Year Club banner recognizes those clubs where there's an average of $100 to the annual fund, and each member gives at least $25 to the annual fund. 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club is just that. Each member in the club is a Paul Harris Fellow, and this is a one-time recognition. And the 100% Paul Harris Society Club is where everyone in the club is a Paul Harris Society member. So I mentioned Rotary Direct, and two of the easiest and most secure ways for our donors to support our foundation is through Rotary Direct and online giving. Rotary Direct is our recurring giving program, and it allows our donors to enroll in automated giving, whether that be via credit card, debit card, or checking account. And they can do this on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. This is such a great alternative to sending in several checks a year and worrying about whether or not we'll receive that contribution in time. As the slide shows, Rotary Direct has seen a significant growth over the past year. And District 5010 has about 90 members enrolled. That's about 6% of your membership. Again, here we need your support to educate members, to encourage them to enroll in this program. And you could do something easy like set up a laptop during a meeting and have a Rotary Direct enrollment drive, or even incentivize donors and members to enroll by offering a points matching campaign. If I could just suggest one thing, when you do encourage your members to sign up for Rotary Direct, be specific and ask them to sign up for the annual fund share. This ensures that the district gets those district designated funds back to support projects that you'd like to do in the future. Our online giving platform is also an option for our donors. Utilization of our online giving platform has increased by 31% in the past year. This increase shows that our donors are adapting to using technology and giving online. It's the best and fastest way for a contribution to be processed and posted, especially at year end. This is also where donors can sign up for Rotary Direct. Additionally, our online giving platform offers a way for our members to make memorial or tribute gifts. And club foundation chairs and club presidents can even go in there and make the contribution on behalf of the club or club members. This avoids you having to use a multiple donor form and having to send in a check. You can use a club credit card, a personal credit card, and make that contribution for your members. So you may say, that's great, Adina, I can make this contribution for my members, or my members can go online and do it themselves, but how do I know who's donated? Well, Diane laughs because I know that's the question. There is this wonderful report called the Contribution Detail Report for Clubs and Districts. So this is such a great resource to club and district leaders. As you can see, the report has 3 tabs here. The first one has a fund summary, and it does just that. It summarizes giving to each fund in your club or the district. The second is a donor summary, which summarizes giving for each donor in the club or district for the year. And the third is donor detail. It includes donor name, gift date, gift method, gift amount, and fund designation. This is basically a transaction detail of every contribution that comes into the club or district for the year. So it's a great resource for you to use if you'd like to check to see if everyone's made their donation. I do want to note this report contains personal data, and it's so important to note Rotary's privacy policy and be sure to take care when you're using this report. If it's emailed to you, please delete it after you're done using it. If you print it, please shred it after you're done using it. I'd also like to note this report is not available online, but you can request it through the Rotary Support Center, and I've listed that phone number and email address there for you. So let's take a quick moment to take a look at how you can access reports in My Rotary. Hopefully everyone on this call has a My Rotary account. If you don't, I hope after this call you will go and register on My Rotary and make sure you have one. It's so helpful as a district leader or a club leader. So when you log into My Rotary, you're going to just hover over Foundation, the Rotary Foundation tab here, and then click on Foundation Reports in the drop-down menu that appears. That will take you to this reports page. A quick note, you can also access your own personal donor history report here to see what your personal giving is. To get to the fundraising reports for your club, you'll then scroll down to the contributions and recognition section under club reports category. Before we get into this, I'd like to show you a neat trick that you can do here. You can add any one of these to your quick links tab. If you see this blank arrow here, you're going to click on it and then click on add to my quick links, and it will turn purple. Once it turns purple, this report section will be added to your landing page when you sign into My Rotary, and it will also be on your reports page under quick links in the upper right-hand corner of the page. So it's an easy way to access reports for you. There are so many useful reports in here. This is a snapshot of what a club leader would see, but tonight I'm going to focus on the club recognition summary and the club recognition, Club Foundation banner report. But if you have time, go in here and take a look around. There's a lot of good information in here. So let's take a look at the club recognition summary. I talked briefly about Rotary Direct, and club leaders can view who's enrolled in Rotary Direct on this report. Now, keep in mind, this report is a recognition report and not an individual contribution report. The club recognition summary is typically a favorite of club leaders, and it helps with information on how many foundation recognition points the club may have, as well as individuals in your club. Foundation recognition points are awarded in appreciation for personal contributions from an individual or an organization, and they're only transferable to other individuals to help them achieve their Paul Harris Fellow, or to an organization for a certificate of appreciation. These points accumulate 1 for every $1. And the recognition amount column indicates how close the donor is to achieving their next level Paul Harris Fellow. As I mentioned earlier, gifts to the endowment fund do not count and will not be included in this column. This report is intended for tracking recognition and points, and for confidentiality reasons, this report will not display recognition amounts greater than $9,000. If the club has achieved 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club banner in the past, that will appear right up here under the club name. And lastly, you can view everyone's last contribution date and fund, and the club's all-time giving. The last page has some neat information on the club recognition summary as well. It includes a glossary to help leaders better understand the report, and a table including each Paul Harris Fellow level and the pin that comes along with it. So moving on to the Club Foundation Banner Report, this is available also to club and district leaders. This report can be used to identify member and club engagement with our foundation, and it shows the club's progress towards achieving club giving banners and individual member giving status. The club snapshot at the top includes information such as E-rate percentage, per capita, and density of members with Paul Harris Society giving capacity. You'll also be able to see a snapshot of information on each individual club member's giving in these recognition categories for the year. It won't show you the actual dollar amounts, but it will give you indicators such as whether they've made an E-rate eligible gift of $25 to the annual fund, or a Paul Harris Society eligible gift of over $1,000. This report will also show you which members are enrolled in Rotary Direct. So circling back to my question at the beginning of this presentation, what good could your club or district do with an additional $10,000? Well, now that we have some additional tools and resources, here are some examples. And by increasing every Rotarian every year percentage from 48.4% to 75%, 80%, or 85% or more, increasing commitments to the Paul Harris Society, and engaging donors in projects and sharing the Rotary story, we can work on making all this good happen with future projects. And I'd just like to finish off by saying thank you so much for sharing your evening with me and giving me a few minutes of your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Adina. That's always helpful to hear from somebody's different perspective. And some of this I'm sure we probably know, and some of it is new and we'll certainly take away. So I think I don't see Portland on yet. So why don't we go ahead and take questions? Anybody have a question? Ted, go ahead. You need to unmute.
Yeah, not necessarily a question, Adina, but more an observation. A lot of these programs are not universally understood by Rotary members. This has always been a problem, and I guess my motivation is to try to make this more commonly understood amongst the members, and so that's kind of an important role for club foundation chairs to work with Diane and myself and the others on the foundation committee to do this. And one of the things that happened last year that was rather unusual or interesting to me anyway, was that about halfway through the year, the district governor realized that he had not appointed a Paul Harris Society coordinator. And so he called me because we're classmates at, we graduated from MIT together. And so we're kind of old buddies. And he said, do you want to do this? And I said, okay, fine. We started off, and it was merely a matter of not putting the word out and people not understanding, but we started out with 28 members in the Paul Harris Society and ended up with 58. And it wasn't really very hard, but people just didn't understand that this was out there until it was publicized. And so my point is, I guess, so many of these things need to be publicized better and better understood by the members. And of course, that's the task of yourselves and ourselves and the individual club foundation chairs to kind of get the word out.
That's
I
exactly,
agree. Yep.
yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go
Sorry,
ahead,
Diane.
Adina.
I agree 100%. And it's, you know, I'm sure Elizabeth can agree with this too. As we create these presentations, sometimes we almost feel silly because we think, as Diane said, so many people know, but also so many people don't. We find out when we're on the road. I went to a Pats where club president-elects did not know what Rotary Direct was. So we're always in this role of having to educate, and as are you as district and club leaders also, and getting that out. And as soon as everyone's settled in by the end of the year, then it's changing of the guard and it starts all over again.
Yeah, I second that absolutely. And Ted, that's what we're trying to do. So that's why I'm also recording this so we can share it as well as the one that comes on Saturday. So we have a couple other hands. Paul, I'll call on you first, and then Matt, you're next after that.
Oh, thank you, Diane. I had a couple of questions. One, this came up because of a Rotarian that had died and left a huge amount of money, but it was structured in a way that it went into the endowment fund, which did not allow for us to get money back after the 3-year period of time, like if it had been in the annual fund. And I guess my general question is there a way, I think the answer is yes, by just having an expert here to ask is good. Is there a way in one's will to specify that a bequest or residuary clause gift would go into annual fund so that it could come back after the 3-year period?
There
Adina?
is, and I'm going to divert that to Elizabeth.
Do you want me to take that one? Yeah, and this is really kind of where I help in the foundation, and you're exactly correct. And yes, the answer is yes, and I'll talk about it a little bit more when I kind of do my presentation. But this is a really good example of, and this happens a lot, and it also happens a lot of times where the funds appear at the foundation and we didn't know about them, and really kind of getting to know, first of all, the folks who might be leaving those gifts, and in this case, having that conversation that the gift, finding it. I would say first off that everything we do at the foundation is donor focused, right? So if the donor says they want it to go to World Fund, then we don't mess with that. It goes to World Fund. But if they say, we also want to support our district and we want some funds to come back and we want the district to be able to do grants as well as do good things in the world, that right there is setting up a bequest to endowment fund share. And the donor would basically designate the gift to endowment fund share, and it would go into the endowment, and into perpetuity, the gift would be coming back and funding your DDF, your district designated funds. So in essence, it would be kind of providing that. So the answer is yes. The designation in the will would be endowment fund share for it to come back and support the district.
So I know that I had asked that. I used to be a lawyer and I was looking for what is the magic language where you
Yeah.
put in to say, I want, and I got someone who called and wanted to talk about this and that. And now I think I understand why there has to be a conversation to more fully tailor what the donors, interests are. It's not simply this bucket or that bucket. It could be a combination of, things the person wants to do that can be matched with what
And-
Rotary can do.
And ideally, so we actually draft something called a testamentary gift agreement. If we know a gift is going to be of a significant size, we actually, I would work with that donor. We would actually draft something up that's actually binding on the foundation, letting us know how they want those funds to be used. And in that conversation is, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to fund the district? Do you want it to go out and do good for children or water or environment or whatever it would be? So having those conversations on the front end can certainly benefit the district and are sort of the best practice for the donor.
Thank you. That's very useful.
That's why we love to have you two ladies here. We get our questions answered right away. Okay, Matt, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was trying to jot down that 800 number to get the contribution detail report, and I didn't quite get it all the way down. Is it just the regular 800 number for foundation, or is
I
it a
just
different?
dropped it in the chat box.
Okay.
there. Oh, I just dropped it directly to Vivian. Let me share that with everyone and I'll share the email
Mhm.
address as well.
And I guess a question about that report is kind of the intention for us to look at that and maybe identify people that have been giving and maybe like taking out the coffee and thank them and see if they want to give more, or I guess some ideas of how to use that
course.
effectively.
There's several ways to use it. Actually, some clubs and districts will run matching points campaigns, for example, and they'll use that to see who's made a donation. If they say we'll match anything $100 and over, they might ask for that report to see how many points and for who they have to match, or if it's a donate to become a Paul Harris Fellow and we'll match whatever you give. So matching points could be one way to use it. Others will use it to see just who's donated in their club so that they can see if there's other individuals that they have to make the ask for that have not donated yet. It's a great way to see if they send in a check, just make sure all the contributions have posted. So different club leaders will use it in various ways depending on what their need is. Polio Plus Society, some districts use it for that now too, those that have started doing that, because it does show the polio gifts on there as well.
Thank you, Adina. Matt, I think that answered your question. I'm going to go on to Becky, or I'm not sure who has the question, but go ahead and then Paul, you're next.
Hi, Elizabeth. This is Bruce. I'm curious about if you guys have guesses as to how many people have Rotary or the Rotary Foundation in their will, and you have no clue that it's there. And when you talk about wording and things like that, seems to me that you must think that's one of the most important things would be to talk to people and say, hey, let's do this right. We hope you're here forever, but does it?
Yeah, so there are gifts that show up at the foundation out of the blue fairly frequently. I would say as we have done a better job of promoting the endowment, reaching out to districts, reaching out to clubs, people are becoming more comfortable with talking about bequests and endowment. They're becoming less and less. Generally, we know what we tend to find more often is that somebody put the Rotary Foundation in their will for $10,000 15 years ago and then forgot about it. Well, that gift could really be worth, if it's a percentage of their state, it could be worth, $200,000. People don't tend to update their their language or their bequests very often. The other thing too is there might be more options available to them. So they may have done that bequest a long time ago, and they've become more involved in water projects, and maybe they now want a portion of it to go to water too. So it's really important, I think, to, in your clubs and in your district, every once in a while, look at your bequest society folks. And if you have a chance and a really good camp, you're never going to waste your time picking up the phone or taking them out for coffee and saying, thanks, Bob. Gosh, I know it's been a long time since you did this bequest. I just wanted to check in, tell you what the foundation's doing now, and thank you for your gift. Hey, has your estate changed? Are we still in your will? And things like that. So that's definitely, and in terms of the language part of it is easy. We tend to tell people to keep the language in their will pretty basic. And then what we do on our end is we can change the designation on the back end. So you don't have to keep going back to your will and saying, whoa, now I want water. Oh, now I want children. Now I want share. Just asking the bequest society to keep in touch with the club, keep in touch with the district, keep in touch with us if something changes. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, Paul, you're next, and then Madigan.
Well, we had a foundation committee meeting a week or two ago, and Ted and Diane, I think what had come up was under the club recognition summary, is there some way, you say there are privacy considerations, to be able to find out who is given more than that 9,000? I may have misunderstood what we were looking at, but just some way to identify folks that have given more than that. Is there some way to do that?
So the club, as I mentioned, the club recognition summary is a combination of points and dollars. So you might see 9,000 and the donor's only given 5,000 in all reality. There is no way for you at the club level to specifically see that. Diane and DG Cheryl do have access to what's called the donor summary report. So if you wanted to see who's within a specific range, or if you wanted to encourage major donors, for example, in your club and see who's nearing that range so that you can talk to them, Diane can access a report where she can put brackets, let's say parameters for 7,000, for example, to 9,999, and pull it for your club to show who in your club is nearing that gift level. She does have to be specific with the lower end and top end parameters, but you can find out who falls within that range, and it will show you how much they've donated, not what they've donated to specifically, but you'll be able to see the total.
And that total could be the more than, again, I don't want to take up a lot of time if I've got this wrong, but if someone had given, like, say, $50,000 for some reason, it would, and that's not going to be on the report that's available to a club level.
Correct.
That's available to someone up the chain.
It is available to Diane and Cheryl, yes. And again, she can put in whatever parameters you'd like. So she can put in anything from 8,000 to 99,000, and it will pull everyone in your club in that range.
Was that what
Paul, there is the major donor report, which includes all levels of major donors. In other words, level 1 is 10,000 or more, and level 2 is 20,000, and so on and so forth. It also lists the Archclump Society members and the Bequest Society members, and that's a really useful report, but I don't know that it's available at the club level. I know
It
that.
is.
That
It
one, she's right. That one is at the club level, but Paul, I did figure out with their help to do the other report that shows the actual, how close they are to the next level. So that's what's helpful. The one that Ted was talking about is helpful because that's what they've already achieved. Then the question is, how close are they to the next one? So that's, and I can help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Matt, are you ready?
Yeah, I am. I was just curious if there's a way to, as the foundation chair or president, to get a notification or alert if someone does go make a large contribution through Rotary Direct or online, and as a way that we get, I
Short
guess.
answer, no.
No. Okay.
But there are reports that you have access to. This one that we talked about, contribution detail, is one you can request to see if there's a big jump, let's say in your club giving, if you'd like to find out where it's from. If you'd like to just see what new levels people have achieved, you have access to the Paul Harris Fellow and Benefactor report, as well as the report that Ted mentioned, the Major Donor Bequest Society and Arch Clump Society report that will show you any new recognitions and previous recognitions in your club, if it's just for recognition purposes, if you'd like to say that thank you to that donor.
And Matt, I will also, if it's a gift of $10,000 or more, so if someone's actually made a gift or structured a gift of $10,000 or more, I let Diane know, so she can push it out to the appropriate club foundation chair and president, so that you can recognize that person in the club too. So if it's a really big gift, we'll let you know.
Excellent. Well, I mean, one of the best ways to keep people giving is to actually give them a thank you. So,
Of course.
and I know that it automatically comes from foundation, but yeah, it's important. So,
And we share with Diane too, on a monthly basis, Diane and Cheryl, the new donors in the district, a list of new donors, first-time donors, as well as Paul Harris Fellows now and Major Donor Bequest and AKS members. So that report I sent over to her as well on a monthly basis.
And so I'm doing, Matt, I'm in the process of trying to make sure I know which ones you already get and have access to and which ones somebody else might want. So but that's part of having these meetings, is to try and get that information out there that's available too. So great, good, really good questions, you guys. Thanks so much. And Elizabeth, why don't we just go ahead and go with your portion of it, and we'll get more questions, I think.
Yeah, I have kind of a big, broad presentation, and we're kind of a nice small group. So this is going to be like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. So, but I guess, I really had to arm wrestle to be able to support your district. I want to say that, out front. I am regionally based in Portland, Oregon, and travel and support the West Coast of the US and portions of British Columbia. And for the longest time, I have really wanted to support your district's major gift efforts, because I feel like it's, pre-COVID, it's a little bit easier for me to be available to you. I'm in a closer time zone, and hopefully I can travel up there and actually meet with you and your donors. So that being said, please don't ever hesitate to reach out, to call. I'm close at hand if you need support, or you want to talk about major gifts, or you have a question about how to encourage major gifts or plan gifts, or you just have someone who came up to you with a question and you don't know the answer and you think it could be something big, but you don't really know, just reach out. So I actually I'm going to start my presentation here. Let's see. All right. Are you seeing it there? All right. So oh, it's not gonna. There we go.
There you go, Elizabeth.
There we go. There is me. So I've been with the Rotary Foundation for about 11 years now, going on 12, all of which I've worked in major gifts. And my role at the foundation is really to work primarily one-on-one with donors looking to make gifts of $10,000 or more to the foundation. And part of that, I'm a great believer in sort of the rising tide rises all boats. So the more that your club members are contributing to the annual fund, the more that they're giving to their club foundations or their local foundations, kind of the best thing I think you can do in your club, in your district, is just kind of keep your ear to the ground. If you hear someone talking about an area of the foundation that they're passionate about, if you know that they've recently retired maybe, or they're spending a lot of time traveling in their vacation home. I mean, these are some of the things you can kind of keep your ear out for. They've just made a large contribution to their university. These are things that I'm kind of always trying to keep my ears out for just a little bit. And you can always call me up very confidentially. You're welcome to introduce me to a donor if you like, or just call me up and say, hey, Elizabeth, I'm not sure this is anything, but let me know what you think. I'm here to help you with that. And just to start out here, something that you can be very proud of, going into, the last few years, which have been, through this COVID years have been sort of a wild ride for all of us. The foundation really came into this in a place of stability and strength. So we have weathered pandemics in the past. We have weathered world wars. I mean, one of the great things about having 100-year history is that you have a history of knowing how to respond to situations, and Rotarians know how to roll up their sleeves and get work done. So we are continue to be in a good financial position and well managed. We have again for the 13th year been recognized by Charity Navigator, which is the leading charity navigation. They rate all the charities as a 4-star charity due to our transparency and use of funds. So you can feel very proud sharing that with your members and your donors. This is a little outdated, but it's the numbers from, we talk about giving, particularly in major gifts. We are often talking about sort of donor-centered giving. Where do donors really want their funds to be utilized by the foundation? And sometimes in major gifts, they can be split up between multiple areas. They want some to come back to the district. They want some to go to maternal and child health. They might want some to go to polio. There's various areas. Rarely in major gifts is someone giving to just one particular area of focus. But this is kind of this is through 2008, so it doesn't include the most recently created area of focus, which is the environment. But you can see that water and sanitation continues to be a very popular source of grants for Rotarians. They want to do a lot of water projects, as well as disease prevention and treatment, which does include polio as well. So this is a little bit this is really a spaghetti on the wall. So these are just the ways to give. And I guess I'm going to talk a little bit really quickly and broadly about some ways to give major gifts and plan gifts that you might not have heard of in other foundation talks. You don't need to be an expert in any of this. Just know that these exist so that you can have these in your mind in case these conversations come up. So how do you give? So of course, there's one of the great things about the Rotary Foundation is that we are in fact big enough and diverse enough to be able to handle large gifts and complex gifts. And this in major gifts can be an issue. I recently had a donor say, I have been trying to give this money away for a long time. You don't know how hard it is to give away money. And partly that's because you really can't, give a huge chunk of change to your club foundation all the time. And you can't really give it to the small, nonprofit. You have to, it takes a lot of planning to give money away. And Rotary Foundation is a place where donors, Rotarians and non-Rotarians can find that they can make significant gifts. So you can of course make a gift of cash outright, or major gifts can be pledged over a number of years. So if somebody wants to reach major donor level 1, you can actually pledge 10,000 over 3 years. So you can do 3,333 for 3 years. So it's a great way to look at your Paul Harris Society and say, okay, of our Paul Harris Society, who might be capable of jumping up to 3,333 for 3 years, where that could be the next level of folks that you actually look at and say these could be folks that could be making a slightly larger gift. So that's one strategy for increasing major gifts. Other ways to give: appreciated securities, stock is really a great asset to make contributions from. And you can, really great taxable, tax-wise choice to make a gift of stock. Often, frequently, folks will sort of clear out their stock portfolio and then buy it back. There's a whole strategy around charitable giving and stock gifts. Life insurance is another one. Real estate, IRA and other retirement assets, life income agreements, and donor advised funds, I will talk about a little bit more in detail. So there are really two main recognitions for major gifts and bequest society. The first is major donor. A major donor is anyone who has given cumulatively or outright $10,000 or more. An Arch Clump Society is the next sort of significant level of giving at 250,000. And these are really, Arch Clump Society is really a true recognition of someone's dedication to the Rotary Foundation and making that commitment to the future of Rotary. So it's a really beautiful ceremony in Chicago. Typically, right now we're a little on hold with those, but Arch Clump Society is one way to be recognized for significant giving to the foundation. I will say in major gifts, rarely is someone writing a $250,000 check. Rarely. I mean, that happens. I've been here 11 years. I think I've happened 2 or 3 times. Usually they're called structured gifts. Someone's making a gift utilizing some of these other tools, like it's partly of an annuity or it's partly through a donor. There's a number of tools that they're using to get to that sort of magic $250,000 level. And that's often where it's a long process that I'm working with someone on achieving a goal, whether it's major donor or another level. Bequest Society, of course, is someone who has left Rotary in their estate as a beneficiary of their estate at $10,000 to more. And a newer recognition as of a few years ago is the Legacy Society, where folks have left the Rotary Foundation in their estate of over $1 million or more. And Adina showed this slide earlier. It's sort of a review that major gifts can be given to any area of the foundation. So you can make a major gift to support the annual fund. You can make a major gift to support polio. You can make a major gift to support the endowment, to an area of focus, to peace centers. Anywhere that you can give a gift to the foundation, a major gift can be made. Now, sometimes with a major gift, the annual fund isn't the greatest place to put that because it's a big chunk of change at one time. If you're giving a lot, it can actually swamp a district at times. And so typically those major gifts go into the endowment, and the endowment will sort of spread out into perpetuity the return back from that gift. So that's why you tend to see a little bit less major gifts to the annual fund. You certainly see major gifts to Polio Plus, and they're fantastic because there's a 2-in-1 match from the Gates Foundation. And if you love a bake sale and you want to take money out of Bill Gates' pocket, give it to polio because it's great. It really is stretching those funds significantly further. There are unique opportunities for major gifts to also make a gift to something called a directed gift. And, really it's sort of an overcomplicated process of saying it's a specific time frame for a specific project type. So it could be a humanitarian project to a specific part of the world. So if a donor wants to make a gift and they really want to give it to maternal and child health or water, and they know they want it used within a year, what they're in essence doing is they're giving the gift of a grant to a district. It replaces the World Fund and makes that money immediately available to the district to be used to create a grant. So directed gifts, if you have a conversation, you have a donor who really cares passionately about a specific area of the foundation's areas of focus, and they don't want that money. There's some people who don't want money sitting in an endowment. They want it used right away. A directed gift, you can kind of refer them to me, and I can talk to them about directed gifts and disaster aid gifts, of course, as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the endowment, because this, again, is where most of the large gifts to the foundation go. Gifts to the endowment can be made today or committed to the future. They can come back to the district via share, just as Paul, your question earlier. If someone directs their bequest or makes their outright gift to the endowment fund share, that gift will come back every year and support DDF. So it provides a long-term support to come back to support district designated funds and local grants. It can also go to the World Fund, which is basically, the World Fund used to be called trustees discretion. It's where there's the greatest need in the world. It's really totally an unrestricted gift. It could go to peace centers or an area of focus. The one thing to keep in mind about the endowment is that the funds are never fully expended. However, the spendable earnings are calculated each year and provide ongoing support. So every year, each fund within the endowment fund is calculated, and those funds are coming off and spinning off those funds into perpetuity. The endowment total is currently at 1.43 billion. The trustees have made a goal to reach to grow the foundation by 2.25 billion by 2025, because there's no better way to set a goal than just have it go with the date, right? Okay, this is being recorded. I shouldn't say that. Anyway, but the the endowment fund, in the great part of that is when you have a $2 billion endowment, what does that really mean? It means that $50 million a year will be coming out of the endowment to support grants and programs, which is pretty amazing. It's a huge support for the foundation and provides ongoing support. So donors are really looking for, I'm going to tell a story because I'm much more of a better storyteller than a slide presenter. But here's an example of, donors are really increasingly looking for more sophisticated ways to structure their gifts. And I'm gonna use a donor. I'm gonna call them Bob and Mary Smith. And Bob and Mary have decided, along with their children, and of course their CPA, because that's a good person to have in the conversation, to make a gift to the foundation this year. They love participating in water and sanitation projects. They have decided to take advantage of some of the tax savings by making an outright gift of appreciated securities. So they make a stock gift of $25,000. I work with them to create a fund, the Bob and Mary Smith Endowed Family Fund for Water and Sanitation. So they now have their own fund within the endowment with their $25,000 stock gift. They decide they want to continue to give to this fund. So they continue to give to this fund over their lifetime, and this fund grows. Their family gives to it every year. Their children are now, giving to this fund, the Bob and Mary Fund. And eventually those funds, grow to a significant size, and they're receiving reports back every year on the grants that are coming from those funds. They've become more involved in projects in Indonesia now, as they've had this fund for a number of years. And they decide they're going to designate this gift a little bit more specifically to water projects in Indonesia. So what this does, and then they've decided they also want to include their bequest in this too. So they want to leave a bequest to their Bob and Mary Fund as well, and others can contribute into it. So by structuring it this way, they're planning for today, they're including their family, and they're planning into the future as well. So Bob and Mary receive their reports during their lifetime on how their funds are being used, and their funds will really be available into perpetuity to support the projects that they care most about. And this is actually a real world example of this. This was a $25,000 gift given in 1995. And as you can see, despite the ups and downs of the market, the fund has grown to 37,000 and has also generated nearly 39,000 in spendable earnings. So the total amount of this now is almost 80,000. So more than three times the actual original dollar amount given in 1995. So this is really a real world example of why the endowment is a great place for long-term giving. Okay, and I know I'm pretty close on time, Diane, but I can Is it okay if I continue on here? So I'm going to go fairly quick through this, and this is really those pieces of it that if you have these conversations and you hear, you know that these tools exist at the Rotary Foundation for our membership. A great place to start is bequests. Obviously, leaving a gift in your will or estate. If it's a gift over $25,000, you're leaving in your bequest. You can create a named endowed fund, and then you just need to reach out to me. Let the donor say, you know, do you know you can create an individual named fund at 25,000, and we create that with them. So we also have codicil language available. I also really would encourage you to get to know your bequest society members. Reach out to your bequest society if you ever want to take on a campaign. I recently worked with a district that really was just reaching out to their bequest society members, and they raised a significant amount of money just talking to folks because a lot of people hadn't gone back and looked at their estate documents in a really long time. And they made a lot of outright gifts from that too. It's just an outreach and a touch point. You can also leave Rotary as a beneficiary of your life insurance or as your retirement assets as well. So we've seen an increase in naming Rotary as a beneficiary of retirement funds, mostly due to the SECURE Act, which eliminated the stretch IRA. So many donors are finding it beneficial to leave retirement assets to charity and leaving more tax favored assets to their heirs. So this might be something that you're hearing more increasingly. IRA rollovers, and these are great right here at the end of the year. And happy birthday to anybody turning 70 and a half, because when you turn 70 and a half, you start to face required minimum distributions. And you can roll over up to $100,000 a year without paying federal income tax from an IRA. The age, due to the CARES Act, the age will actually increase to 72. So if you don't need those funds now, making a tax deferred gift to the foundation or to any charity is actually a great way to utilize that distribution every year. The foundation also offers annuities and trust, and charitable gift annuities are basically you're making a gift to the foundation and you receive income back from those gifts throughout your lifetime. It can diversify an account. Provides a really nice tax benefit the year that you make the gift, or can be stretched over 3 years. So if you know you have somebody who's having a significant life change or retirement or something along those lines, charitable gift annuities can be a great asset. I'm going to tell another story really quickly. And this is actually from my own club, and he lets me use his name. So wonderful Don. I was sitting next to Don. This is a number of years back at a club meeting, and he was complaining to me about his beach house. And he said, "Oh, Elizabeth, I'm so tired of mowing the lawn at the beach house, and the neighbors are, you know, whatever, and I pay taxes on this place, and I don't want to rent it out, and none of the kids want to go to this beach house anymore. I'm kind of done with this beach house. What do I do with this beach house?" And then he also tells me that he is selling, he's selling his business. So in those two statements, I know that he is probably facing a taxable event in the next few years. He also wants to get rid of a piece of property that's not doing much for him. He's been in Rotary for a very long time. He's a wonderful Rotarian. He's the one who always raises his hand and donates to every project we have. So what we ended up structuring for Don was he donated his beach house to the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation sold the beach house and put it into a charitable remainder trust. Now this trust will grow over time. Don got a sizable tax deduction, which we spread out over a couple years to offset the sale of his business at that time. And he gets a check from the Rotary Foundation every year, which he just thinks is a hoot, because he gets a check from the Rotary Foundation Trust every year for this beach house. And sort of the icing on the cake was, I called him up and I said, "Hey, guess what? You're Arch Clump Society." And he said, "I'm what?" And I said, "You're Arch Clump Society. You're going to go to Chicago and have this big party." And he just thought it was the best thing ever. He tells everybody about it. He goes back to Chicago every time there's an AKS of somebody he knows. He's gotten 3 other members of our club into the Arch Clump Society through this story of his that he tells. So you don't need the long and the short of it. You don't need to know all these tools exist, but you have access to them, and the members of the club have access to them because we're a big enough foundation and we're sophisticated enough to be able to handle some of these things. And then very lastly, donor advised funds, which I really love. Donor advised funds are kind of a boutique option for giving. It's like your own charitable checking account within the foundation. So you kind of can create a foundation within the foundation. We see a lot of these right at the end of the year because you make a gift of $10,000. You kind of don't know what you're going to do with those funds. Maybe you haven't decided. You can make a gift of $10,000, receive the tax benefit for that charitable gift. And then it kind of lives in this little fund, this donor advised firm fund for you. And you can direct gifts to any US 501c3 charity from that. So it's like having your own little foundation within the Rotary Foundation. There are lots of tools and resources available to you. If you've not been there, I encourage you to go to rotary.legacy, rotary.org/legacy. Check that out. There is a whole toolkit on there with a lot of these pieces on it. There's the Quest Society cards in there, endowment fund financial reports. And then also Rotary has a partnership with freewill.com. So freewill.com/the Rotary Foundation. It'll do a basic will for you. So if somebody wants to leave the Rotary Foundation in their estate plans, but they don't have a lawyer and it's too complicated to go do all that, they can actually do it on Free Will. We have a partnership with them that'll give you a basic will and include the Rotary Foundation. So I did go a little long. I'm a bit of a talker. I apologize, but thank you. Please reach out to me anytime if I can help.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was very instructive. Things that I didn't even know about, which I'm just learning. I know they're out there and they're always changing and adding things, but if you guys want, I'm happy to stay on as long as anybody has questions. And I think Elizabeth and Adina are too. Are there any other questions for them? Paul, go ahead.
I just had a general question that's confused me forever. And you refer to the annual fund, and then sometimes it's referred to as the annual/share fund. And sometimes I think, well, are these two separate things? Is the share a subdivision of the annual? If so, is there another subdivision? What is I don't sure, is there a difference between the word annual fund and share?
I'm happy to answer that one. I'll take that one. To answer your question, Paul, the annual fund is the umbrella for a bunch of other little micro funds, I guess, share included. Areas of focus and share are included under the umbrella of annual fund. So share is the only one that will return DDF back to your district so that you can work on district grants and global grants. If you donate to Annual Fund World Fund, those funds will go directly to the World Fund. Annual Fund Areas of Focus, let's say water and sanitation and hygiene, that will go directly to fund projects in that category. If you donate to Share, it will come back, a portion will come back to your district after 3 years to work on projects.
How about if, maybe someone says, well, you're going to donate to the annual fund, and I'm sure the forms all have the correct extra letters, but if you say, I want to commit to the annual fund, but you want it be really part of the money that comes back in 3 years. Mm-hmm. What am I trying to ask? If you just say, I want something to go to the annual fund, does that mean annual/share? Is there a default?
So yes, there is actually. The forms do break it down, but we oftentimes would receive contributions that said annual fund, and it automatically defaults to share as long as it's a Rotarian or a friend of Rotary that's linked to a club. If a non-Rotarian donates and they're not linked to any club, then it defaults to the World Fund. But as long as you're linked to a club, it will default to share.
Thank you.
Well, I tend to think of the endowment, the annual fund is really kind of the checking account. It's the funds that are used right away. So it can go to annual fund Then you can specify water, annual fund. I want these funds used right away. So it's annual fund water, or world fund, or share. So it's sort of the sub fund within the annual fund. And it, like Adina said, it kind of defaults to that share setting so that it comes back to the district unless someone specifies otherwise that they want it to go to, you know, any of the areas of focus within that. So you kind of have to specify otherwise for it not to be share. Does that make any
Yeah.
sense? So you'd have to
Yeah, I
say,
didn't realize if they're not a Rotarian, then
Well-
I'm sort of the grant subcommittee chair, so I'm kind of prejudiced. I want to have
yeah,
more money coming back to.
I'm with you. I'm all annual
I-
fund share all the time.
I think I think we all kind of are, you know. I think the share is kind of keeps the engine running. I will say, in the case that you said earlier about the gift that came in to the endowment, the default for the endowment is World Fund. So if there's no paperwork and a bequest shows up and money shows up from an estate, it'll go into the World Fund, which means that it will not come back to the district. So the donor has to specify bequest society share, endowment fund share.
And
So you're saying just the bequest is going to go into the endowment fund world fund sub.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless somebody, if a check shows up at the door with nothing attached to it, it'll go to endowment fund, World Fund. So it
Okay.
won't come back to the district. If it does, someone has signed a bequest card that says endowment fund share, portion of it will come back to the district.
But it sounds like if it's something that's significant, people should be in touch with your department to,
Yeah.
you know, customize it to exactly what's going to work for everyone.
And Paul, for non-Rotarians, if you're sending in a contribution form and you put donors that are non-Rotarians on there, we automatically link them on our back end to the club that came in on the form. So it's very rare that we don't link it to share for non-Rotarians also and create an account for them. If someone goes online and they're a non-Rotarian and they donate, then it will go annual fund, World Fund, or if they specify polio or something else. But otherwise, if you send in a multiple donor form, it will be linked to your club.
That's really helpful, you guys, because I don't know that I knew that that was specifically the direction of the fund, so that's helpful. I really wish we had a lot more people on. Hopefully we'll get some more on Saturday, but I'm going to tell them they missed a really good session. You're a wealth of knowledge and it makes the things a lot more clear. So we did have another speaker that was supposed to come tonight, but it's fortuitous that you didn't show because you guys adequately filled it with questions. So thank you.
One more question, unless we're out of time. And
Well, I'll stay as long as you want, but
I
anybody else wants to go.
I'm fine staying too. It's a little late
Likewise.
for Adina and Matt.
That's okay.
Go
well,
ahead,
my
Paul.
question was just generally and I get confused because some of these ways to give overlap with each other, of course. But it was generally the idea of, you know, I guess a strategy of how you deal with folks that, you know, because if someone's in Rotary, they might also have other objects of their bounty, other things they give to. So how do you make sure that they're not feeling that they're being overly tapped? And secondly, and related, that, you know, when they come to Rotary, they want fellowship and get their hands dirty and other things. And that's maybe a topic of another thing, but I know in our club, there's been some questions that Rotarians can, you know, they don't want to just say, you know, give here, write the check here, where do you want your money to go, but how they get more involved in fellowship. And so I don't know if that's something that.
I think you can tie them together. You know, ideally, you know, depending on the size of your club, I think that one-on-one contact saying thank you. Thank you for your giving. What do you ask a lot of questions. How do you think the foundation's doing? How do you think Rotary's doing? What information do you need more information on? And just, you know, give a call to all the people who are your Paul Harris Society or all the folks who gave last year, even if it was, you know, $10, and just say thank you. and do that outreach, because you can even set up, you could even set up, pick 5 people, past presidents from your club or whoever it might be, and give them a list of 5 people to call and say thank you, and just kind of keeping those conversations going so that people don't feel you kind of have to touch the heart before you touch the wallet, and connecting it
Mhm.
to, thank you. You can't thank someone enough. And typically those thank you conversations, if you ask a few questions, can really kind of unearth some thoughts about how they're feeling and make them feel more connected. Before, it can get a little tiring. My own club, we had this thing where, it was included in our dues, and it kind of drove me crazy, because I don't want to give to something that's included in my dues. But yeah, I'll give to, education and children. Sure, I'll do that. But, so it's a matter of connecting it to the cause. And if
Well,
people
I'm
are,
thinking that if there's a change in Rotary, we have like millennials or Generation B or whatever it is, where they're younger and they maybe want to be more engaged. They don't want to move away from the brick and mortar thing, and they may not have the money resources. I think what I'm hearing you say is that you really have to deal with each person as, where they are, and not just have often blanket appeals during a club meeting of everybody should donate, and that maybe that doesn't fall on everyone's ears the same way.
I think it's a balance, between sort of doing those fun things in the club that sort of just raise money, and also those things that make people feel connected to what it is that they're, including, every time you do a roll call of donors or something, including a thank you card from a project that you did or something, or a photo of a project that your club did. You rebuilt the band shelter in the park or something, and hey, you funded this. Or it could be just really connecting it to the cause, I think, is kind of where I default back to. And I also think that people who are charitably minded are charitably minded, and they will be giving to a lot of other charities too. I mean,
Mhm.
and I think that you run the risk of not asking, and then they kind of wonder why Rotary didn't ask me. I'm already giving to the, I'm giving to the food bank, and I'm giving to the, this, that, and the other. It's funny, my Rotary clubs never asked me. I think that is probably more frequent than having been, asked too much. But
So more like what the expectation of a donor would be, joining an organization like Rotary. They expect to be informed how they can give. And
And Paul, you mentioned millennial donors, and they are especially giving to causes that they feel close to. And they actually are perfect donors to start building that pipeline with, in addition to the fact that their wealth is much different than that of older donors. They are building their wealth faster, and many have invested in stocks. So they are starting to have that capacity to give, but they want to give to a cause that they can support, and that they feel for. I was in Alaska in 2019, and I met with one of your Rotarians. I had lunch with someone, and he shared with me a story about a project he participated in and had tears coming down his eyes. So to me, that really touched my heart. And I think sharing stories like that within your club, especially now that everyone's used to Zoom, or you can have a speaker from anywhere Zoom in, I think those stories of impact could really help you show even younger donors, this is what we do. You're here for fellowship and networking, but look at how much more we can do if you participate.
Yeah, and I think, Paul, the important thing too for the club foundation chairs or anybody who talks about foundation is to say, to emphasize, at the beginning of your career and you're young, you might be married, have little kids, it doesn't matter how much you give, just start giving a little bit.
Exactly.
And then it will grow as they get. And then, speak to those that might have more and say, those of you who can, there's lots of different ways to give. We can help you with that. So
Yeah.
Kind of
That
talking to
25
all.
E-Ray donor, that's just having an increase there can do so much more.
And I really think that for the general run-of-the-mill club member, and especially the newer club members, this whole idea of the share and how that works and how that comes back to the club, it's so important to say, okay, this year, and it happened in my club, we got 2 district grants, and we're going to help these people at this facility. And by the way, we're going to help these children over at this other facility. And you know where that money came from? And explain the flow again, because it's not intuitive. And for new members or newer members, the connection between annual fund share and DDF that funds a project that the club really wants to do, that connection is not very solid. And so once a year, just talking about this one particular issue and saying, oh, and by the way, like Diane has done now, she discovered by adding it all up for the last 8 years or
Yeah.
so that we've had DDF grants in district grants in our district for almost $2 million. And people need to know how that connection works, because it isn't something that you learn in the orientation manual or whatever. It just isn't.
I know in our district, I know RI does not require a match for the district grants, the DDF that goes to district grants. In District 5010, we do require a club contribution. And so that's an additional talking point, you know, in addition to the money we're getting back that we, you know, the club needs to raise, put in their, you know, their skin into the game. And what I would like to do is, you know, you could pitch that, and also that Philip Lamois, if I'm pronouncing that right, Philippe Lamois has www.matchinggrants.org that we use to, you know, for everything about district grants. That, you know, those, if you can really document them, put the photos and everything in, that's a wonderful promotional thing to let people know, and they can go at their own and peruse through, and they can see the description, the financing, and all the transparency. So anyway, that's sort of, I'm on my soapbox here, but it sounds to me like that's, you know, a way to get money and also promote what we're doing.
You know, Paul, one area that you could look at in terms of Bequest Society would be, you know, those who are very passionate about specific areas of focus or who are involved in grants for a particular area. So, you know, look at kind of who's in your district teams and who are sort of spearheading these grants. And maybe it's a conversation, you know, saying, hey, you've supported these water projects for a long time. Have you thought about leaving? Have you thought about, you know, your estate and leaving a gift in perpetuity to fund these type of programs? It's just a group of folks that you could identify as potential folks to leave.
I wasn't
Bequest
aware that
Society.
you can kind of set up foundations within or funds within the fund
Mhm.
that would go on and on. That's it's interesting.
Okay, well, we're over our time, but I love having these conversations
Yeah.
because they're very helpful. And I did record this, so I'll post it on the website. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Adina, and thank you, Elizabeth, for being very knowledgeable and helping us and staying up late.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank
We
you so much.
appreciate it.
It was
We're
really
happy to
nice
be
to be
here.
here.
Absolutely. We'll see you again on Saturday morning. And thanks, Matt, Becky, and Bruce for coming, and Ted and Paul for coming as well. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank
Good
you.
to
Okay.
see
Good
everyone.
night,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.